You may have heard the term margin of error before when the results of a poll are reported. Often you might hear something like, and that has a margin of error of plus or minus 5%. That's the kind of thing that we're going to investigate in this video, is how that margin of error is determined and what it tells us. So the margin of error lets us know how accurate a poll is. It's typically described as a plus minus with a percentage. So like we said just a minute ago, plus or minus 5% lets us know how accurate our poll is. And then if we want to have a 95% confidence level in our poll results, that means we can feel really good about these results. If n people are surveyed, the margin of error is plus or minus 1 over the square root of n. So that is the number of people surveyed is what leads to our margin of error. We use that n in this formula to determine the margin of error. As you might expect, if the number of people surveyed is very high, then the margin of error will be fairly low, because when we survey a whole lot of people, our poll results are likely pretty accurate. If we don't have very many people in our survey, then our margin of error is bigger because we can't be as sure about those results. Let's see how margin of error gets calculated. In a survey of 900 people, 74% prefer creamy peanut butter. Rounded to the nearest whole number, what is the margin of error for this survey? Keeping in mind that margin of error is found by doing plus or minus 1 over square root of n, where n is the number of people in the survey. Our margin of error for this particular survey will be plus or minus 1 over square root of 900. So the first thing we'll do here in finding our margin of error is take the square root of 900. So we'll have plus or minus 1 over 30. And then we'll do 1 divided by 30 on our calculator. And that's going to give us a margin of error that's plus or minus 0.03333. Right now, this answer is in the form of a decimal. What we want our answer to be for margin of error is as a percent. So we need to convert this decimal to a percent. To do so, we're going to move the decimal point over 2 places. And so now what we're looking at is plus or minus 3.3333%. This particular problem told us to round our answer to the nearest whole number. So we'll find the whole number. We'll look 1 space to the right of that. Since this number is 4 or lower, we're going to round down, and we're going to say that the margin of error for this particular survey is plus or minus 3%. So that's our margin of error. We should take just a second and realize what that means. The results of our survey said that 74% prefer creamy peanut butter, and our margin of error is plus or minus 3%. So we want to go down by 3% to 71% on the low end, and then up 3% from that 74 number to 77% on the high end. And so what this poll result tells us is we can be confident that between 71% and 77% of the people surveyed prefer creamy peanut butter. And the way we got there was we had 74% from the survey, and then we calculated the margin of error to be plus or minus 3%. So we go 3% in each direction, and that gives us the range that the actual percentage would be. Margin of error can go the other direction also. We can say a survey had a margin of error that was plus or minus 6%. How many people were surveyed? When we're going this direction and we're trying to find out the number of people that were surveyed, our formula is very similar to what we had before, but it is a little bit different. And the number of people that are surveyed is 1 divided by the margin of error squared. Previously, we were taking the square root. This time, because we're going the opposite direction, we're going to square. And so what we'll do is we'll put this in to our formula, and we'll have the number of people surveyed is 1 over the margin of error, which is 6% squared. We're going to convert that to a decimal. So that's going to be 1 over 0.06 squared. Working inside the parentheses first, we'll do 1 divided by 0.06, and we'll get 16.666 repeating. We'll leave that number on our calculator and then square it, and we'll end up with an answer of 277.777, and that repeats. This question didn't give us any instructions on how to round, but the question is, how many people? And since we can't have a fraction of a person, we'll round this to the nearest whole number. So I'll find my whole number position. I'll look one space to the right. Since that number is 5 or bigger, we'll round up, and we'll say that 278 people were surveyed.